Coach going to go right side, third row, sort of in the middle.
Hey, Coach. Jeremy Grandison, ESPN Charlotte. Your last stop was with Penn State defensive coordinator. I just wanted you to talk about your current defensive unit and maybe what you want their identity to be going into this season.
Well, the identity of this defense has traveled from Penn State through Miami, Mississippi State, throughout my entire career. We want to create a high volume of negative plays. It's important to us to lead the nation and tackle for losses. Those are drive killers. There's a reason behind that. That puts people in third down and long. No one turns the ball over more than they do on third down and long. What everybody knows that turnovers win. How do you create turnovers? So it's always important that we're at the top of turnovers created. I think we led the nation in sacks last year. So it's a scheme that the players love to play in, because who doesn't love sacks, tackle for losses, interceptions for a defensive back? I think we led the nation in PBUs at Penn State last year or 2 years ago in quarterback hits. So it's a playmaking defense. It's predicated on attacking front play, playing some man coverage on the back end. But more than anything, it's 11 guys trusting each other to do their job, playing with great effort, great toughness, and great fundamentals.
Coach, left side, your next two questions right in front of you.
Royal Howell, the Juice Network. Coach, how important was it for you to shed the sour taste after Mike Elko left the program and to pretty much establish your culture and pedigree with the players that stuck through the hustle and grind and be underneath you?
Well, look, it's always difficult when there's uncertainty, right? I think it was maybe a 13-day window where there was not a head coach at Duke, and that's a lifetime, especially in the current cycle of college football. So I give a lot of credit to the players for hanging tough. I give a lot of credit to the staff that was at Duke at the time, still preparing the team for the bowl game. But it's something, I think it's that ideal of what Duke is in general. Our guys want to be at Duke. They love being at Duke. They love the student-athlete experience at Duke. They love what it means to be a student at Duke, what it will mean to graduate from Duke. And I think the power of the place really helped in that transitional time.
Stay on that first row, Coach, just to his right, your left.
Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com. Coach, we know your familiar face here in the conference and obviously your time that you spent at Miami. For the Duke Blue Devils, for you, what was it that spoke to you more than anything else about this program? We've seen it have success. We've seen stints of success. What made you believe that this was the right fit for you personally and that there can be sustained success at Duke?
Yeah, I think everything starts with alignment. And so, I mentioned, knowing Feely was here, hearing some of the commentary from some of the coaches on the staff the last couple of years that I had worked with previously. I had some inside baseball on what was going on and contributing to their success the last couple of years. But that wouldn't be enough without the dedicated support, starting from the president, Vincent Price, through our AD, Nina King. Duke wants to be excellent at football. They want to sustain excellence at football. And I do believe, look, everyone's aware of the turbulence in college football right now. And I do believe that Duke is uniquely poised in a way that other schools aren't. Because as I mentioned before, generally speaking, the parents who drop their young men off at our doorstep as freshmen, it's very important to those families that those young men graduate from Duke University. So we still have a chance to develop a roster. Now we got to take care of our guys. We got to be smart and make the student-athlete experience worthwhile to stay. But if we do our end of the bargain, our players want to be at Duke. And what that allows us to do is that allows us to build a roster the way that it's been done for a long time, that right now the forces of college football are always trying to tear apart.
Coach, from the podium as a follow-up, what does accomplished greatness mean to you?
Well, accomplished greatness is what we talk about at Duke is to not, it's about mastery, and it's about a pathway to mastery. We talk about, trying to not confuse success with excellence. And I feel like greatness comes in the same way, to not confuse success with greatness. What I mean by success is success can be determined in the short term. We're a small sample size sport. In the ACC, the one thing I can promise you, we're going to play a lot of fourth quarter close games. That's just what the sport is. And sometimes the success in the short term can mask what is excellence in the long term. And so whether it's, whatever term definition you want to use, greatness, excellence, that's what we're dedicated to do at Duke.
Right side, Coach, first row.
Jalen Wilson, CFB Nation. First off, Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm outstanding. How about yourself?
I'm doing really great. Thanks for asking. So obviously, with this being your first offseason as the head coach of Duke, I want to ask, what are the most important things that you learned about your team this offseason?
What I learned that you would imagine to be true, but until you're on the inside at Duke, as a coach, you're always trying to impress upon your team the virtues of hard work, of sacrifice, of discipline. You can't have a great team without that. You're going to hear every coach come up on this podium and say, we got to do all three of those things. That's obviously true at Duke. What you realize at Duke is you can't even get into Duke unless you were raised that way. So there have been times in my career, and I take great pride in this as a coach, where I have been the first person in a young man's life to try to teach them discipline. They were never raised with discipline. And that's a big thing that we take very personally as a coach, that we get to instill these values that they were not raised that certain way. You can't get into Duke if you don't understand the value of hard work. You can't get into Duke if you don't, at some point, you had to sacrifice something as a young man when your friends in high school were doing this and you knew you had to finish your homework. You knew you had to study. You can't just luck into the grades. You can't talent your way to get into Duke. And so as a coach, how great is it to be able to inherit a team that has those things? Because now you can spend your time coaching football. You have to spend all your time saying, hey, guys, if you really work hard, it'll pay off. And they wonder whether that's true. They know it's true.
Coach, right over his right shoulder, the gentleman in the second row.
Yes.
Gene Gallen, Chatham Journal. Coach, tell us a little bit about the locker room upgrade you just had and what that means to the team.
Well, what it means is, I mentioned that phrase, student-athlete experience, right? And if you want to be first class, if you want to say you're going to have a big-time program, well, you got to be big-time in all things you do. And there's nothing more important than the players' home in our building, which is the locker room. As I mentioned to the players, they get to be the beneficiaries of a lot of teams that have come through Duke that have not had that. The support we had from our donors, the previous football staff that helped push getting it through, it's really important. And now we get to recruit to that. We get to be in there every day. It's a great blessing for our guys. But we should be a little bit humbled at all the players that did not have that exact same thing before, and take care of it with a reverence of how lucky we feel to have something as special as that.
Coach, from the podium, your defenses have been a force behind the line of scrimmage, ranking in the top 10 nationally in tackles for a loss each year. Is the TFL the unsung hero of defensive stats?
It is in our building, and again, we don't just do it for vanity. There's a lot of analytics. If you couldn't create a negative play on a drive, the points per drive goes way down. It's hard to overcome. By common sense, a negative play creates a long yardage situation. If you can create a negative play on first down, you're behind the chains on second down. And the game is all about either avoiding third downs or what the down distance is on third down. Football is not complicated. People are complicated. Ball is not complicated. So the more we can leverage people into third down and long situations, then the more the arrow turns. To me, it's like blackjack. You're trying to turn the odds more into your favor when you're sitting at the table. And that's why I think the TFL is kind of something that enables us to do that.
Coach, your last question will come in the first row, just to your left.
Coach, when you look back at mentorship for you, as like you said, discipline, teaching these guys discipline, and in a lot of cases being the first person to do that, who taught you that responsibility, that discipline, some of those mentors that you reach back from into your toolbox for that wisdom when you need it? Well,
I think first, you're taught how you're raised. My parents are the first lesson you're ever going to receive is from them. So the first credit goes to them. In this profession in particular, I'm so fortunate to break in at Florida State in the late 90s, and to sit there when football staffs were so small back then. I was like one of 15 in the staff room, and you got Bobby Bowden at the end of the table. You got Mickey Andrews and Chuck Amato to your right. You have Mark Richt as the offense coordinator to your left. Holy cow, what a room of people to learn from. And so to be with Coach Bowden for 3 years, to go to NC State with Coach Amato for 6 years. So really the first 9 years of my career was raised in the Florida State way. Then to go to Middle Tennessee with Rick Stockstill, who really, again, is a Coach Bowden disciple. So over the first decade of my career, 3 jobs, really all taught from the Bobby Bowden way. The guy won more games than I think anybody ever. So it was like getting a PhD in what it takes to be great at football.
Coach,